whenever you're ready, Abu Hussein.
We're live.
تفضل. Whenever you're ready, if there's any.
Not yet.
خير إن شاء الله. Saeed, do you have any questions? طيب.
Okay.
I do.
تفضل أبو سعيد.
There was an issue in the masjid, and the brother was trying to give a verdict on whether you should raise your hands when making dua or not. What should he have told the brothers, that it's best to raise your hands when making dua, or it doesn't make a difference if you raise your hand or not raise your hand making dua?
طيب. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. The book that we're going to show you briefly tonight is a modern day book, a contemporary book, which is Kitab al-Ilm. Kitab al-Ilm, the book of knowledge, which is basically a compilation of fatwa, of questions and answers, and maybe even possibly a few small rasail, a few small letters, small basic essays that were compiled from the work of Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala. So we always talk about the classic books, the classical books of the earlier ulama, the mutaqaddimeen, of the earlier ulama, and not just in aqidah, but in every aspect of the religion. So when a student of knowledge is trying to build his or her library, and one of these sections of the library, genre in your library is supposed to be Kutub Adab Talab al-Ilm, the books that talk about the virtues and the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. So it's two ways of doing it. You can start off with the new modern day books and work your way to the medieval era, to the classical era, or you can do it the other way. Starting off with the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century, 5th century, 7th century, 8th century, up to the modern day books. Okay? And obviously there are levels among the modern day books. Right now, whether we realize or not, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, is considered old school of the modern age. In 2018, he's considered what? He's considered old school. And his works are considered to be contemporary or modern day classics. It's not like the ulama, the mashayikh, the fuqaha, the writers, the authors that are alive today writing books. It's a world of a difference. The 90s and 2000. It's a what? Word of a difference. Him writing a book in the 80s is not like the books that are being written today. But despite that, it's still modern in comparison to Ibn Abdul Barr's book. In comparison to Khatib al-Baghdadi's book. It's still new. But to someone who wrote a book last year, or compiled a book 3 or 5 or even 10 years ago, this is still considered to be what? Relatively old and relatively classic of the modern era. So Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, from among the modern day books and the current books, or the newer versions of those books, this is one of the best. But it's actually a compilation of his different fatwa. Compilation of his different fatwa. The book, it has been translated into English, at least parts of it. I don't think the whole book is in English, but I know for sure that some of it has been translated. And this was one of the first books that I bought when I went to Mecca for the first time. When I first made Umrah in 2002. This is one of the first books that I bought, and it was one of the first books that I started reading when I was on my first tour in Saudi, or Saudi, as they say. So if you get a chance, if you don't have the book, put it in your library. And the book is highly informative and very beneficial due to the fact that it's in question and answer form. Fatwa. A fatwa on menses, a fatwa on divorce, a fatwa on salah. You're getting a fatwa on ilm, a fatwa on seeking knowledge. So it's a different style. Let alone Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, in his reputation, in his style of teaching, in his style of discussion, his in-depth knowledge. So it's a very good book to read. And I will personally say, many problems that we have, many things that we suffer from, many illnesses that we have in dawah and seeking ilm today, a lot of the cures and remedies can be found in this book, if we go back to it, inshallah ta'ala. As far as the question is concerned, a brother told a brother, or he was arguing with a brother or discussing with a brother about raising the hands when you make dua. Is it best? Should he have told the brother, etc.? The ulama of Islam, they say that the default of making dua is that it's recommended to raise the hands. That is the default ruling, is that the hands should be raised when making dua. The ulama of Islam who say that Allah Azza wa Jalla is above the throne, and the ulama of Islam, unfortunately, who say that Allah is not above the throne, they all unanimously agree that the hands should be raised. Those who say that Allah is above the throne and above all of His creation, obvious, you're asking Allah who is above you. يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُم مِّن فَوْقِهِمْ. Allah says the angels fear Him from above. And those who distort this and interpret it figuratively, they say that the above, the hands being up, is qibla to dua. It's the qibla of dua. Like you face the qibla when you pray, the qibla of dua. The point I'm trying to make is not discuss the issue of al-istiwa or al-ulu. The issue is Allah above. That's not my point. My point is that all of those scholars say that the hands, what? Are to be raised. That's a virtuous thing to raise the hands. So that's the asl. The only time in which you should not raise your hands is when there's a specific instance in which the Prophet ﷺ made dua and he had the opportunity to raise his hands and he didn't. And it was something that was reoccurring. It's something that he did often and he never ever raised his hands. Then we say in this instance, the sunnah is not to raise the hands. But if it's a hadith that the Prophet only did it once and something prevented him from raising his hands or whatever, or he was just standing or traveling or riding, that's a different story. Because the asl is to raise the hands. And many people, they confuse the asl with the far'. They confuse the root with the branch. It says bid'ah to raise your hands. There's no proof to raise your hands here. Ya akhi, the proof is established that you what? Should raise the hands. And the only time we go against that asl in the situation which I just explained to you. Now the concept of making dua after the salah, raising your hands after the salah, that's a different issue. And Allah knows best. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
AA from Allen, Texas. If one is a female, there's no Salafi community in her area, and she doesn't have the means to move, what steps can she take to find a suitable spouse/area with a Salafi community?
طيب, a sister non-Islam, with regards to having a husband, a teacher, a community to go to, she should be with the Muslims that are trying their best to learn and practice the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The sunnah of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, as it was understood and practiced in the most organic way possible by the Sahaba and those who came after the Sahaba. That is what you should look for. Look for a masjid and look for a spouse, a husband that is trying his best to implement the sunnah to Nabi ﷺ as was understood and practiced by the Sahaba. And Allah knows best.
Ali Mas'oum from Manchester, UK. Who are the narrators of hadith for Shias from among Sahabas, Tabi'een, and Tabi'een?
With regards to the Shia narrators of hadith amongst the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and the Tabi'een, then as if it's an oxymoron. If they're from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, then they're not going to be Shia. But obviously that's not what he means, or it's not what she means, the questioner. We understand what they mean, inshallah, but the wording needs to be adjusted a bit. Okay? Because you're saying they're Shia narrators, but they're from the Salaf Salih. And that's not gonna work. It's oil and water. Alright? Perhaps the questioner meant who are the narrators from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een that were accepted by the Shia, and that can be found in the books of the people who call themselves Shia, the Rafida. Perhaps that's what the questioner meant. If I'm wrong, then they can correct me, inshallah, in the live stream. With that being said, the general rule is that the Rafida, the proper terminology for the people who call themselves Shia, whereas we just explained this last week in Philadelphia, on the Philly special, the live stream, and the first class on the prophetic seerah, we explained this, is that they themselves like to be called Shia. They like to be called Shia. Shia is a pleasurable term for them. It's an honorific title for them. وَإِنَّ مِن شِيعَتِهِ لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ. The word Shia is mentioned in the Quran. And in several places, it's mentioned in the Quran. Ashia, a Shia, Shi'atihi. And a Shia literally means someone who's devoted. Someone who is an adherent of your way. Someone who's a loyal supporter of you. So the word in itself denotes no negativity. In contrast to the word Rafidah, which denotes negativity. Because they rejected and they refused. Rafadu. They made rafd. Okay? So, that's firstly. Secondly is, they themselves consider most of the companions to be apostates, waliyadu billah, with the exceptions to a handful of companions. A handful of companions, they believe, remained upon Islam after the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? And obviously this is not including those who they accept from Ahlul Bayt. Those who they accept from Ahlul Bayt. So in most cases, the narrators of the Sahaba that they want to accept are those from Ahlul Bayt and those whom they consider to have remained upon Islam after the Prophet ﷺ's death. As far as the Tabi'un and Tabi'in, it's going to follow in that line. Those who they feel trod the path of those few isolated individuals. We don't have a lot of time for this question or this answer. The sciences of Hadith to the Rafida and the Shia, whatever you wish to call them, they have a system of Hadith as well. They have their Bukhari as well. They have their books that they depend upon, Al-Kafi, whatever it's called. They have their books as well. And obviously their books are going to be full of lies, full of fabrications, and full of utter exaggerations. And just the common sense to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed the Prophet ﷺ, gave the Prophet ﷺ so much. He made him the best of his created beings, yet still he surrounded him around bad friends, munafiqs, cowards, womenizers, greedy people for power and status. These were the people that were surrounding the Prophet. And it's a historical fact that no companion spent as much time with the Prophet ﷺ as Abu Bakr. We didn't say an Islamic fact. We didn't say a fact in Bukhari. We said historical fact among everyone. Abu Bakr was the one who was with him the most, and not Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Everyone understand? This is not according to Bukhari. This is according to history, agreed upon. This is the closest one. So how could Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose the one to spend the most time with him, a coward and a munafiq, and someone that Allah knew would apostate? That makes no sense. And the one that was the closest one to him, the best one, who would be the most loyal, was the one that didn't spend the most time with him. That doesn't make any sense. And what do you say about a man, Abdul Qawi, who surrounds himself with these types of men? Either he's ignorant, he doesn't know that they're two-faced, backstabbing munafiqs. He doesn't know that. That means he's stupid and foolish. Or he knows that this is the quality of the company that he keeps, and he keeps that company. Either of the two. Ahlahuma mur. The sweetest of the two is what? Is bitter. Your entourage are all evildoers. Why do you keep those people in your company? Because I don't know. That means I'm what? I'm stupid. I don't know who's who. I don't know what you do. How can your best friend, you don't know what he does for a living? You don't know the address of your best friend. You know the intimate details of your best friend. If you're with someone day to day and you've never met their children, you've never been to their house, you don't know nothing about them, what they do, how they make their money, then you're a foolish person. And if you do know that they're evildoers, they're two-faced, backstabbing people, and you keep them in your company, that means you're evil. So this is what you're saying about the Prophet ﷺ, based off of the company that he kept for all of those years. So that makes no sense whatsoever. Everyone understand this? And Allah knows best.
Abu Idris from Brooklyn, New York. Ustad, what's the ruling on working as a home inspector for insurance companies? Barakallahu feek for your time and efforts.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Fikum barakallah. May Allah bless you in both worlds as well. As we have said regarding many issues, oftentimes there is something which is clearly haram of occupation, and there are other times in which a thing is subjectively haram, relatively haram, or at least it's something haram. A brother is he works for a cable company. He installs satellites. He installs programs in people's houses. They can watch National Geographic. They can watch Sudais recite the Quran. They can watch a documentary about history. They can listen to ulama, mashayikh give fatwa. Or they can watch pornography. Or they can watch cursing and stealing and this and that, and all types of fahisha and haram things. He's just an installer. So half of the on one side of the coin we say it's permissible to work as a cable guy. It's permissible. What the people do with the cable and the satellite is what? That's their discretion. You're not responsible for that. And the other half of the coin we say many people, if not most of the people, are going to use it for haram things, displeasing things, things that are at best disliked and questionable. Most people, not all. The average person isn't watching National Geographic and reflecting on Allah's earth. And look at the white rhino. Look at the red panda. Look at this blue macaw, endangered species bird in the Amazon. How many people are watching that? So from one aspect, we say that he is at fault and he cannot install these things because he's helping him and assisting him upon sin and transgression. Upon sin and transgression. So to be honest with you, it's two faces to the coin. And I don't feel that it's Islamically and scientifically accurate to give an absolute ruling on these issues. That's my humble opinion, and I'm entitled to that. I do not feel that it's 100% accurate to say it's haram to be a cab driver because you take people to church or to the club. Or it's halal to be a cab driver because you take people to the church or to the club. It's haram to work for a satellite company. It's haram to work for an insurance company. And you yourself have insurance. You drive with insurance in Medina, in Mecca. You cannot drive a car unless you have what? Insurance. You get pulled over. You have that first thing he asks you for is what? Are you Muslim? La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Riba's haram. He says what? Hat. Give me your ID. Give me your paperwork. So whether we like it or not, insurance has become a necessity of life. It's become a staple part of our daily doings, whether we like it or not. And we can live in a bubble of imagination and fantasy like many people do. Many people, they do this. Or we can deal with it and be realistic. Let alone the fact that oftentimes having a job like this is better than having other jobs, which a person has to shave his beard, which he has to shake hands with women, and which he has to listen to this or watch this or sell. So you have to fear Allah to the best of your ability. And the concept of insurance in Islam, there are things in Islam or in insurance that are haram. And there are things which are not haram involved with insurance. And then there are things which could go more than one way. It could be haram, it may not, depending on what type of insurance, how much, what heck of that. And whether we realize it or not, there's always some type of uncertainty or lack of certainty that we have with contracts. You pay $100 a month for your phone bill for unlimited data. Are you paying for a sure service or not? Abdul Qawi. You may use the amount, you may not. And there are many other things. So we have to be mindful of this. So to say that it's absolutely haram to be a home inspector for the insurance company, he's just inspecting homes. I can't say that it's absolutely haram. Fear Allah to the best of your ability. Stay away from that which causes you to be doubtful. But we, living as minorities in America and the UK and Australia, let alone in Saudi Arabia, as we said, in Egypt and overseas, but talking about our countries in the West, we have to be mindful of real life. Okay? You have a job that allows you to grow a beard, you pray Jumu'ah, you make your salats on time, you're not directly dealing with really bad things like this. You have to know which battles to fight and which battles that you have to run from. You can't fight every single battle. You cannot fight what? Every single battle. And Allah knows best.
OS from Chills, Illinois. How should a sister go about seeking knowledge of the basics of the religion?
Watch HadithDisciple.
F. Ali from London, UK. Can you do a whole biography of Ibn Qayyim?
Inshallah ta'ala. And Brother Saleh, Abu Hussam, inshallah he'll stay with me to remind me of this. I think that it's something we should honor, and it's only right. We've taken so much from Ibn Qayyim. This class, this khutbah, this lecture, this 5 minutes of faida, so why not? Even though there are people who wrote about his life, and who have mentioned his life and explained it before us, greater than us, but inshallah, why not? Bidnillah, we'll try to do it in a reasonable time, inshallah. And Brother Abu Sam will remind me, because I will forget.
WK from Stockton, California. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What does it mean to not squat like a monkey in Salah?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Not squatting like a monkey in the Salah. The scholars of Islam, they say that the Muslim in general is prohibited from imitating certain things. Certain created beings of Allah, whether it's Shaitan himself, the Shayateen themselves, or whether it is the Fusaq, the sinful Muslims, the Kuffar, the Munafiqun, or certain animals. Certain animals. And from those animals is not necessarily the animal itself, but certain things they do and certain things that you do. So there may be something that an animal does or a kafir does and it has nothing to do with salah. Or let's take, for example, this is away from the salah, but this is a connection of the concept, intercourse, issues of intimacy with your wife. Certain ulama who hold the view that certain acts are haram because they're based off of what animals do and beasts do. Everybody understand this? So here's haram to imitate this thing, but not there, or vice versa. So from these things is praying like a rooster, or sitting like a dog, or lying like a dog, etc. The ulama have Islam, they say when a person prays and he's just Allah like this, like that. like a chick pecking, up and down, he prays. Or when a person just spreads his arms out in sujood, like this, kelb. Or when a person sits in jilsa or tashahhud and his buttocks is on the floor, and his right foot and his left foot are spread out, and his behind and the back part of his thighs is totally on the floor. Everyone understand this? Certain ways of sitting like this, that's what's meant by this hadith and other hadiths. The chicken, okay, the dog, and things like this. And Allah knows best.
FA from Houston, Texas. Salam Mufti. I am giving a khutbah tomorrow on the honor of being a Muslim and da'wah. Any tips?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for giving me an idea for my khutbah tomorrow. Perhaps that's what we'll talk about. Inshallah, you'll get the reward for that. As far as tips, then the first tip is to put your trust in Allah. Refresh and renew your covenant with Allah Azza wa Jalla. That you're His servant, you're His slave, and your forehead is in His hand, Azza wa Jalla. Put your trust in Allah. Ask Allah to give you strength, to give you power. Ask Allah to put the fluidity and the eloquence upon your tongue. Ask Allah to give you the necessary courage and confidence. Because I'm telling you, it may look easy, or you may think it's easy, but it takes a lot to do it. And to do it over and over again, it takes a lot. You need strength from Allah, you need confidence to speak to the people, to talk to people, especially in light of the reality that when the Imam says, Ya ayyuhan nas, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, ittaqullah. And he himself is saying this, and he's a sinner. I'm a sinner. I have sins. I have mistakes. I have shortcomings. Even if it's not a sin, but just a shortcoming of a human being, let alone me personally. So it takes courage to do this. So ask Allah for that courage. And as Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, وَحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي. He asked Allah to remove the knots from his tongue for the people to understand him. So ask Allah Azza wa Jal. وَاسْأَلْ اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Ask Allah from His bounty. Because Allah Azza wa Jal is Alim. He's all-knowing of all things. So that's step number one. Step number two is make sure that you prepare well. Prepare well. If you plan to speak for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, prepare a speech for an hour and amount and content. But don't make your game plan to talk that long. Have extra. Extra. When you trim something and the trimmings all over the floor, have extra. Make sure that you have extra because you may get done quicker or faster. You may forget something. If I forget this hadith, I'm not going to forget what? That one. Give yourself a backup plan. Give yourself a load of ammunition. Inshallah ta'ala, make your plan for the time that you want to speak, but have preparation for much more than that. Another step is to avoid anxiety. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Do not sweat. The more nervous you are, the people will realize that. And the less powerful your message will be. And there's certain gestures or movements or articles of clothing that you can wear that proves nervousness. Fiddling and fudging in with your fingers, hands in your pockets, leaning. Be relaxed. Let your posture be relaxed, natural. Put your trust in Allah. Take a deep breath before you start the khutbah. Deep breath. Seek Allah's refuge. And inshallah ta'ala, practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. You're not meant to be Ibn Taymiyyah for the first time. You're not going to be Ibn Qayyim for the first time. But you have to start somewhere, somehow. Inshallah ta'ala. Last but not least, is to make your message to your brothers and sisters in Al-Islam a talk. Talk to your brothers and sisters. Speak to them how you would speak to yourself. Speak to them in a casual, leisurely manner. Starting off from the first. Inshallah, hopefully in the near future, we'll have a book, inshallah, a manual, training manual, that will be published on how the art of giving khutbah. And inshallah, hopefully we'll do some classes on it as well. On the practical ways of learning the fundamentals of the khutbah, and also adding your own spice, and making your own style. And Allah knows best.
F. Ali from London, UK. How come the recent HD classes setting is different?
Everything in this dunya changes. Nothing remains the same, right? Now, please go back to the poem that's on the 5 minutes of Faida, the slow falling of petals. The cherry tree, the cherry blossom tree is beautiful, it's fragrant. But a time will come which those leaves will do what? Fall. That's right. Everything that goes up, what? Must come down. The green will turn into brown and fall off, unless it's a deciduous tree. But with that not being the case, everything in this dunya what? Changes.
Black to gray.
Wahakada, that's right. The black beards, no longer black beards. It's going to change, right? And Allah knows best.
R.E. from Richmond, Virginia. What can a sister do if she really wants to get married, but seems like the doors are closed?
Maybe you have to refine your search. Perhaps you have to what? Refine your search. If you've done all the other steps, asking Allah for it, making dua, and as we mentioned in our conference on getting married, which I advise every Muslim to go back to and listen to the conference. Married and single. Abdul Qawi?
No.
Married and single. There are many, many subtleties in that conference that we did. Well, alhamdulillah, very important things. And oftentimes you find the average complaint of brothers and sisters, things lacking from that conference. And one of the things that we mentioned therein was not to look for a husband. Now you may say, oh, this sounds funny. This sounds like some type of philosophical rhetoric. What do you mean not look for a husband, not look for a wife? Oftentimes you should stop looking and allow someone to look for you. Allow yourself to be felt and discovered. And we explained this. That means it's to be in the right place at the right time. So if you're a brother and you're looking for a wife, instead of asking and searching here and looking here, be in the masjid. Go travel. Work with this one. Because when a sister is trying to get married or someone's daughter or something, we say, oh, you know what? Abdul Qawi needs to get married in the masjid. Brothers are going to think about him. Now, will the brother accept it? Is that his standard of physical appearance, or Allah knows best? She has been my side Bukhari, I don't want her, you may say. At the end of the day, the offering is going to be made because we pray with him, we eat with him, we travel with him. We know, inshallah, he's a good brother. Perfection is for Allah. But in general, you get a general gist of someone's character by being with that person. So instead of looking and searching all the time, sometimes just do the right thing. And what are the chances of there being a righteous, pious sister that's known in the community? You're not doing this for people to know you, but it is from the reward of good deeds and good character. What's the chances of that? A good, thorough sister, she has to be perfect, but she's thorough, she's good, and no one ever to inquire about her. And the same applies to finding a job, looking for a house, and the list goes on. So sometimes you need to refine your search. And oftentimes, if a person feels that the door is closed or shut, the problem may not be with the fish in the water, it may be a problem with the fisherman. Maybe you're not dropping the hook in the right way. You don't have enough worms on your hook, or you're too picky. You get a fish, you say, I want a sea bass. I want this. I don't want rainbow trout. I want that type of fish. It's not big enough. It's too small. It's too this. Perfection is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Perfection is what? It's for Allah. It doesn't mean that you have to just do away with your standards and go under your standards. It doesn't mean that. But you have to be flexible and have some type of formlessness. If you have 5 do's and don'ts, 5 principles that must be there. The sister that I need to marry, she has to have these 5 things. And she cannot have one or more of these 5 things. Once you got that locked down, everything else should be what? Flexible. She has the 5 basic things. She doesn't have these 5 basic things, but I want her to be taller. I'm such and such height. She's like, okay, bismillah. Bring your back over a little bit. It's not going to hurt you.
Nice heels.
Huh?
Nice set of heels.
Nice set of heels, huh? That was what he says. Or I want her to be shorter, or this or that. I want her to know more. Or I want her to be this age. You may have to bend in those conditions as long as the fundamental things are what? There. Everyone understand this? And Allah knows best. And Allah tells us that you may dislike a thing, and Allah may place what? A great deal of good therein. Next question.
WK from Stockton, California. Salam Sheikh. Is it sinful to have slightly shorter hair on the sides compared to the top, something like a taper?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I do not consider a taper to be haram. I do not feel that that is what's meant by al-qaza, mentioned in that narration. We've done a video on that. And even if I did feel that, the ulama of Islam, they differ. And many of them who say that that is qaza, they say that qaza is makruh and not necessarily haram. Okay? But me personally, I don't think that that's what's meant by that prophetic hadith. Some part of it was shaved and some part of it was left. I don't think that that's the intended meaning of the hadith. A professional tapered haircut that is well known and culturally accepted, that has no type of superstition or polytheistic belief behind. I don't feel that that is the application of that hadith. And Allah surely knows best. It's best to avoid it. Get an even haircut. Allah knows best.
AK from Toronto, Ontario. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Mufti. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve you. Can you explain specifically what qualifies as backbiting? What if one speaks about someone else casually?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you and preserve you as well. Thank you very much. Backbiting is saying something that your brother won't like, he won't be fond of. And you say it behind his back. That's a broad concept. Brother Fulan who's short, or brother Fulan who's tall, or brother Fulan who's, real dark skinned, or he's real light skinned, or he's this, or he's that, or so on and so forth. Is your brother comfortable with that? Is he okay with that? Would he be pleased if you said that, or if you heard that, you saying that about him? And also the ulama of Islam, they say, ala wajhi al-aybi wa tanaqus. Ala wajhi al-ayb wa tanaqus. With the intention of defaming someone. As far as identifying someone, you say, oh yeah, the mufti, he just walked in, the khatib, the imam. He said, who? I didn't see no sheikh walk in the door. This is a true story. He said, no, the young black guy, he's skinny, he doesn't have a beard. They're saying that for what purpose? That's who it is. The guy who walked by you that looks like a kid, that's the guy that's supposed to give the khutbah. There's a true story that happened to us in Windsor Locks once. I was walking out, it was me and Alameen, we were running late. It was bad traffic. We got there, I had to make wudu out of the car. He's on the phone, talking to the guy. He says, he's coming now. So as I walked up, I walked by the host of the masjid, walked right by him, said, Salam, he didn't give me salams. So he's still talking, well, where's he at? Where's he at? It's time to go. So Alameen said, I was talking to him the whole time. So he said, oh, you're the sheikh. It's a real life story. So the point is, if someone says he's skinny, he doesn't have a beard, they're not saying it what? As defaming me, but they're saying it to identify me. That's not the same as, he's really skinny. It's a difference. Everyone understand this? There's a huge difference. And this goes to show us the misunderstanding of the hadith of those who say that you can't say someone is short or tall based off of the narration of the Prophet's wives and saying that if she's short. No, that's not what's meant by that hadith. What's meant by the hadith, you say it in a derogatory manner. Yeah, the short one. That's not the same as, brother Abdullah, short, stocky, such and such. It's not the same. So saying something about your brother that he's not fond of in a derogatory, negative manner behind his back. That's what constitutes ghibah. And obviously, as we said, that is a very broad, concept. So be mindful of your tongue. But it doesn't mean that everything you say about your brother behind his back is what? Ghibah. And Allah knows best.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Amina K from Cologne, Germany. My sister is already 4 years married, alhamdulillah. She wants to get married in civil court to get a health insurance through her husband. Is it permissible?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Getting married in a civil court is not haram unless it constitutes or necessitates something which is haram. Okay, but it's not necessarily a bad thing or haram thing. The scholars of Islam, they mention. Rather, the ulama of Islam and the modern day fuqaha of Islam, they debate on the concept of traditional marriage versus civil marriage. They debate on this issue. I believe this is one of the questions that we answered in Mufti Q&A Volume 1. The question came from the Netherlands. A very deep, detailed question and discussion over can the Muslims, must the Muslims get married in the civil court? Is it mandatory? And does the civil marriage come before the traditional marriage? So it's not necessarily a bad thing, a haram thing. You're going there, you're registering your marriage, etc. Unless it constitutes something which is against the kitab and the sunnah. Of a condition, that's haram. Depending on the country. I've never been to Germany, I don't know. But if there's nothing that constitutes as haram, then it's permissible. Obviously the concept of insurance, health insurance, dental care is something that we just We just spoke about this. And if you don't have insurance, you go to the hospital, the emergency room, your children need glasses. How much money will you pay? Will they accept you? Will they allow you to get the best service? And that's why we said as if. I said as if. Never said it is decisively, but as if insurance has become what? A necessity of modern day life. As if. And we all know the story when I had food poisoning in Medina. And they refused to see me because what? Didn't have insurance. And I thought I was going to die that morning. And the brothers that were there, they would tell you that. Huh? So as if having insurance is a what? Necessity of life. Not all insurance. Not every type of insurance, but some things. Allah knows best.
OA from Riyadh, KSA. Is it possible for a Muslim to be knowledgeable and pious and yet still be clinically depressed, requiring professional help and medication? There is a lot of confusion on this topic.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. First rule is the cup must be emptied. The cup has to be emptied. There's no confusion on the topic, inshaAllah ta'ala, hopefully. But you must get rid of what you think you have. Unlearn what you've learned. Empty your cup. That's the first rule. And we all need the what? The reminder. All of us, myself. Brother say, Mufti, empty your cup. Let me buy it for you. Try it out. Bismillah, empty your cup. We all need to be reminded. Secondly is, Allah Azza wa Jalla has prohibited the Prophet ﷺ from being sad. He prohibited him from being sad. He prohibited him from grieving. فَلَا تَحْزَنْ وَلَا تَحْزَنْ. Don't be upset. Don't be لا تحزن عليهم. Don't be sad for them. Don't have grief for them. فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِيٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. Many ayat, Allah forbids the Prophet from being sad and having grief. So the reality that Allah Azza wa Jalla forbade him from having sadness and grief, it must prove something. And that is that there's a possibility of someone of a high status to have some type of sadness. Was the Prophet going to be sad? We know that there are certain things that Allah Azza wa Jalla forbade the Prophet from doing that the Prophet would never ever do. Listen carefully to this Quranic gem from the sciences of the Quran and tafsir. There are certain prohibitions to the Prophet ﷺ that the Prophet would have never ever done. لَإِنْ أَشْرَقْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ وَلَتَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Allah says, and if you made any shirk, your deeds will be null, and you will be from the losers. The Prophet would have never ever made shirk. Ever. Allah would have never allowed that. وَلَا تَدْعُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Allah says, don't call upon Allah Azza wa Jal. مَا لَا يَنْفَعْكَ وَلَا يَضُرُّكَ فَإِنْ فَعَلْتَ فَإِنَّكَ إِذًا مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Allah says, do not invoke a God along with Allah that can neither help you or benefit you. And if you did so, Allah says, you will be from the Zalimeen. The Prophet would have never done this. But Allah Azza wa Jalla, He forbade the Prophet from making shirk to show the danger of shirk. So there are certain things that the Prophet would have never and could have never done, but Allah told him not to do. And there are other things that Allah Azza wa Jalla forbade the Prophet from doing that he could have done. And perhaps he did as a human being. And from that, one may say, is sadness and grief and depression. That's a broad term. There are levels of depression. I feel a little down today. I'm a little depressed. I'm sad about what happened to this one, what happened to me, this sin that I keep making. That's not the same as someone being depressed, drinking, bottles of sorrow, taking pills, watching movies for 10 hours straight. I don't understand this. Netflix. I mean, you just what? You're going to binge because you're depressed. There are levels of what? Levels of depression. But the Prophet was a human being. So the fact that Allah told him not to become sad, not to become grief-stricken, not to be depressed, that proves that it could either happen to the Prophet, or if not, it can happen to somebody of what? Of knowledge and piety. So it can happen. But there are certain levels of depression and sadness in which it cannot happen to a pious, righteous Muslim of knowledge. It's impossible for you to just drown yourself in sadness, not go outside the house, not pray, keep eating and drinking and sleeping and doing haram stuff, and you have knowledge and deen. Impossible, because your iman is going to bring you up. You may fall down. A championship fighter, he may fall to the canvas, but a championship fighter is going to do what? He's going to get up. He's not going to be KO'd. He's going to get up. If it's too late, or the referee stops the fight, but he's going to what? He's going to get up. Joe Frazier, huh? Knocked down Muhammad Ali in the first fight, the fight of the century. If you watch the fight, you'd be shocked how quick he got up with the canvas. Everyone saw the left hook that he hit Ali with. And Ali did what? He got right up immediately and put his hands on the ropes. That's the difference between a champion and someone who isn't a champion. So in this sense that I'm speaking metaphorically, a champion is someone of ilm, of piety and righteousness. He may become depressed. You may get sad. Something may happen to you. But your iman has to keep you from what? Staying on the canvas and being counted out. So it's yes and what? No. I don't think someone of a high level of piety and righteousness would have to take those heavy drugs and medicine and a great deal of detailed knowledge of Allah and His names and His attributes and hereafter. And the ulama of Islam, what they went through, that could be that depressed. I don't think that that can happen. Unless there's another type of sickness or illness, psychological, mental thing that that person is suffering from. And Allah knows best.
Ilham Salah from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Assalamu alaikum Mufti. Is it allowed to work in old age home, give them bath, helping them, etc.?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. The question comes from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, you said?
Yeah.
Working in an old folks' home, a senior home, taking care of them, giving them baths, etc. Inshallah ta'ala, there's nothing wrong with that, bidhnillah, as long as you don't do anything against the Quran and the Sunnah. Washing them, obviously there's an etiquette with regards to their awrah, touching their awrah, looking at their awrah, and obviously I believe there's an etiquette even in the professionalism among the non-Muslims, certain things that you're not allowed to do, and certain measures that you have to take when you have to touch them or see them, let alone in Islam. So as long as these things are fulfilled or avoided, there's nothing wrong with it. Rather, perhaps you get a good deed. Get paid and also get a good deed by treating elderly people in a kind manner. And perhaps you can give them dawah. Maybe you can give them dawah, but don't say anything about you being a Muslim. Don't say anything about you giving, give dawah through your actions. And you show them that I just don't do this because it's a job, but I look at you as if you're my grandmother, my grandfather, and when I get older. And unfortunately, a big part of the American culture is the neglect of old people. Okay? However, I'm going to say something, and I don't want to offend nobody, but oftentimes, I don't have sympathy. I have a softball game, I can't come. Abby, look out here, right? Sure, yeah, I'm busy. Abby, play, all right, yeah, right. Football game, can't go to a Quran competition. They're always busy. They don't never have no time. I'm tired. I'm stressed out. I can't. Is it going to hurt you to throw the ball at your son in the living room? You don't have 5 more extra minutes of energy after work that you can't kick a soccer ball with your son? So when you get old and weak and decrepit and your back is bent over and you can't control your bowels, it's not that people don't have sympathy for you. But if you raise your son properly, and if you gave your son time and respect and effort and you treated him, I don't think your son is going to forsake you. I don't think so. Even if they put you in that home, they can't take care of you, they don't have the ability to look after your needs, they're not going to forsake you. They're not going to allow anyone to just do whatever they want to you. So oftentimes we become over-sympathetic for old people. And we can't forget that these old people were once young. And they were ignorant, they were rude, they were nasty, they were backstabbing, conniving people when they had the strength. Now they don't have the strength and they're old and decrepit, it's boo-hoo. Nah. You reap what you sow. You lived a horrible life, and then it's the end of your horrible life. As the Prophet tells us that when the soul is going to be called out of the body, the angels will call out to the kafir, the fasiq. أيها الروح الخبيثة كانت في الجسد الخبيث. Oh, you wicked, foul soul, come out of that wicked, foul body. So oftentimes we can't never forget this, guys. But that doesn't apply to everyone. There are people that are miskeen, that are old, that are mistreated, abused by these people. They're not given the things that they need. And you should be merciful to them. And try to be merciful even to the kuffar that used to be wicked, or the Muslims that were wicked. Perhaps it will soften their heart for tawbah. And perhaps within that ta'ala, your kind treatment of those old people will be a means of calling them to the deen. Whether it's Islam you're calling them to, whether you're calling them to sunnah, whether you're calling them to tawbah, to righteousness, before you die. Everyone understand this? So be mindful of taking their wealth, oppressing them, being mean to them, pushing them. Be mindful of these things, Inshallah ta'ala. And this is one of the worst things of the modern American culture. I don't know how things are in Canada or UK, but in America, it's well known. That's the point I'm trying to get to. As one man, I believe he was from Egypt, he was a scholar, and he was speaking to some people that were amazed with the West and amazed with America. America this, America that, America's razzle-dazzle, it's wonderful life in America. So he said to him, he says, don't look at these things and be deceived. He said, go to the hospitals, go to the orphanages, go to the senior citizens' homes, and then you'll see the culture of America. Then you see the American dream, the land of the free and the home of the brave. When you see how they treat their elders, how they treat those that are young and weak and poor, then you'll see the true culture of America. So this is appalling for someone to be a good father, a good mother, generous, and then they throw them in a home with someone that has the coldest, hardest heart. Steal their money, abuse them, may molest them, do all types of things to them. That's very disheartening. And a Muslim should never ever be like this. And Allah knows best.
Abu Musa Merrick Abdul Khabir. Assalamu alaikum from Columbia, South Carolina. I wanted to know if giving your baby up for adoption and how it's done according to Ahlul Sunnah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. If you have a child, thank Allah for that child. Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah is narrated that he would say to someone who had a newborn, Barakallahu fi mawludika. Says, may Allah bless your newborn. May Allah Azza wa Jalla allow it to be strong and healthy and sound. May Allah allow it to reach its full term, its full age. Wa shakarta al-wahib. And may you be thankful to the one who endowed you. May you be thankful to the one who gave you the baby. So the baby is a gift. The child is a gift that should not be given away or forsaken. There are other means and ways of generosity and helping out your brother, not by giving up your child. The child should not be given up for adoption in Al-Islam. If someone cannot have children and they wish to have a child or raise a child, there are other ways and other steps. Do not give them your child. And Allah knows best.
AK from Cologne, Germany. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What would you advise the sisters in Germany to do when Germany brings the niqab ban? We are already not allowed to drive the car wearing niqab.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If the sisters hold the view that covering your hands and the face is mandatory, it's obligatory, then make hijrah if you can. Go to another country, even if it's a European country that doesn't have that rule. Go to another country which you can. If you can't leave the country, you can't go to another country, then fight for your rights. Try your best to stand up for it, to protest, to have the necessary speakers, the necessary voices to explain the freedom of religion and so on and so forth. Everyone get the point that I'm trying to get to. Fight for it if you can. If you can't leave and you can't fight, or fighting is fruitless and you have to stay in Germany, then fear Allah to the best of your ability. If it's going to be a problem, if you're going to be incarcerated or fined or things are going to be taken away from you by wearing the niqab, there's no coercion in the religion. You can't do it, you can't do it. So once more, if you can leave, it's one option. If you can stay and fight, that's one option. If you can't leave, you can't fight, or fighting is of no use, they've decided on the issue, there are muftis, fatwas being passed, the niqab is not from the deen. You'll find fatwas like this. Covering the hands and the face is not from the sunnah, it's culture of Arabs. And we are Germans, manic people. And the people who come from Lebanon and Palestine and Jordan and wherever other countries they come from, Somalia, wherever they come from, you're here in Germany. What can they do? The government decides on something. They have their Islamic verdicts to back it up. It's not from the religion, it's extremism, it's ISIS, etc. What can you do? Fight for it if you can. Leave if you can. If not, if you have to stay there, try your best to fear Allah the best way you know how. If you don't have to drive, don't drive. If you have to drive, if it's a necessity to drive and it's illegal to do it with your face covered, then uncover your hands and your face and ask Allah for forgiveness and for mercy. And Allah knows best.
AA from Santa Rosa, California. Assalamu alaikum. A woman does not know when her menses began. It may have been at end of Asr, Dhuhr, or Maghrib the day before. Should she pray all of those to make sure? So when she becomes pure, what prayer should she make up? Is it all of them to make sure?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. It's like making tawaf. And you're unsure how many times you went around the Kaaba. You're making the salah, you're unsure how many rak'at you made. You build upon that which you know for sure. I'm sure that I was pure for this prayer. I'm sure. The next two prayers, the next prayer, I'm not sure. So go back to the foundation of certainty. I know Asr I was pure, Maghrib and Isha, I may have not, I'm going to do it anyway. And you cover yourself. So go back to the last time that you know for sure and build it upon that. Even if you're unsure about the other prayers that followed. Based upon what you're sure and certain of, and then act accordingly with regards to the rest. With regards to the what? With regards to the rest. So that's the best thing to do. If it's less than 24 hours, 3 prayers, 4 prayers, let's say 5 prayers at worst. It's manageable. It's not like a week or a month or 3 days. It's not a hardship, it's manageable. The best thing to do is to be safe and to take precaution. And Allah surely knows best.
MR from London, UK. Can I wipe over my headscarf when having to do wudu at work? And then do I have to wipe my ears directly, or can I do so from outside the scarf?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's permissible to wipe over the khimar. As far as wiping the ears, then the ears should be wiped directly. However, one is going to say, if I can wipe over the khimar for ease and manageable wiping, then taking out the ears is a hardship. And the tightness of the wrap, or the safety pin, or the pin is going to be broken when I pull out the ears. So if you can wipe over your ears after wiping over your head with relative ease, because it's easier to pull out your hair instead of taking off the whole khimar, I believe. I don't wear khimar, but I would imagine. I would what? I would imagine. That's the best thing to do. The ulama of Islam, they themselves differ over many issues pertaining to this question. Is it permissible to wipe over the head with a khimar? Do you have to wipe over your ears? Is that even obligatory? The hadith that says al-udhunani min al-ras, that the ears belong to the head. Hadith in Sunnah bin Majah, Hadith Abi Umama is not sahih. Hadith on daif, munkar, shadh, la yasih. It's inauthentic hadith that says that the ears are from the head. Everyone understand this? So the ears, are they to be washed or wiped? The correct view is that they are to be wiped and not washed. But is it mandatory to wipe the ears? Everyone understand this? The best thing to do is to wipe over the khimar and to wipe the ears, and do not wipe the ears from the what? From the khimar. I would understand this, and Allah knows best. Faddal.
Do they have to have wudu before?
The question is, do they have to have wudu? No. The ulama of Islam, they say the rulings of wearing a turban is not the ruling of wearing khuffayn. Khuffayn, you have to place them on tahara. Da'huma, فإني لبستهما أو أدخلتهما وهما طاهرتان أو هما طاهرتين. Leave the socks, he said to Mughira ibn Shu'bah. Leave them, because I put them on and my feet had tahara. That's a condition for the foot and for the covering of the foot. The ulama of Islam, they say a turban or any other type of wrapping, tiskhan, tisakhin, imama, they say this laysa shartan. It's not a condition like that of the feet. And Allah knows best. Even though one may say it's the same, we say no, there are differences.
Abu Hassan from Cairo, Egypt. May Allah reward you, Sheikh. Can you give us an insight into the two schools, Ahlul Hadith and Ahlul Ra'i, and the friction between both camps, and how Imam Shafi'i merged both schools?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you in the lands of Egypt, and bless all of the Muslims there, and all of the Hadith disciples there. Ahlul Hadith and Ahlul Ra'i. What was the beef, the fight between the two camps, the two schools? Give a brief breakdown, etc. Within the 2 minutes that we have, because this needs a whole lecture. Ahlul Hadith in general were the Muslims that tried their best to build and base their understanding and practice of the religion directly and organically on the athar. The hadith of the Prophet and the athar of the Sahaba. Directly, to the best of their ability. And Ahlul Ra'i in general, I said in general, because it's haram to be oppressive for anyone, even if you disagree with them. In general, they were those who felt that that was too rigid, that was too stiff, too solid. Has to be some movement. There's qiyas. This is mentioned in Quran and Sunnah. This isn't mentioned in Quran and Sunnah. The reasoning, the wisdom is the same. Why not apply it? Or the Prophet ﷺ, he said 4, it doesn't mean that he prevented 6. The Quran and the Sunnah oftentimes commands us to think. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. So it can't be this rigid, stiff way of thinking. Rather, there's movement of qiyas, ihtiyat, sadd al-dhariya, etc. So they were people that tried to use some type of flexibility, some type of motion. Were they right in that? Could they stick to that? Was that extreme? That's not the point. The point is that's the original rationale. And how to use a ra'i, thought, deduction, and reasoning systematically with one's mind. Whether We don't make but so many photocopies. Because every time you make the photocopy, it gets faded. We stick to the original print. Now, we sacrifice a bit of flexibility. We sacrifice a bit of formlessness, but it's purity and safety in that. And Al-Ra'i said the opposite. In that safety and precaution is rigidness and limitation. Well, heck of that. So there are pros and cons and dangers in both schools. And obviously balance is what's meant. But it doesn't mean that a person bases his deen off of ra'i and then seeks athar. No, it's the opposite though. Asal is athar. اتبعوا ما أنزل إليكم من ربكم ولا تتبعوا من دونه أولياء. Allah says, follow what has been sent down to you. فلا وربك لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم. And ayat. The asal is the athar. And then you build upon the athar. So it's looking like meat. The main course that you're having is meat. Steak and potatoes. Can you just go up to a cow and bite it? No, you can't. Can you whack the cow with an axe or a pole arm? Or just slaughter it and eat it? No. You need things. The meat has to be taken off of the cow. You have to clean it. You have to wash it. You have to cook it. You have to prepare it. You have to have some type of seasoning, how to cook it, etc. Even if it's just cracked peppercorn and sea salt. You have to have something. You have to know how to cook it. When it's raw, you have to have something else besides the what? The steak. But the steak is the what? That's the asal. And the asal is not seasoning. The asal is not how you cook it. The asal is what? The main nutrition is from the meat. So that's the proper way. It's to make that the asal and to have your spices and your seasonings. And to branch off when it's necessary to branch off. And compare when it's necessary to compare. Make qiyas when it's necessary to make qiyas, and the qiyas is clear. But qiyas, the seasoning, the spices, has a limit. Too much seasoning, too much spice, it's not offensive to anyone, inshallah. The food may become ruined. It's ruined. It's no longer chicken with spice. It's now spice with what? Chicken. Like tea, coffee, too much sweetener. It's like you're drinking liquid sugar with a tad bit of coffee. No, the asal is the brew. Then you put in some honey or agave or sugar, whatever you wish to use, or milk. So that's the correct way. If one wants to learn why these people had this fighting and this war, etc., then you have to read about it. And the last thing I'm going to say is, you cannot just look at it from a dogmatic view of they hated the hadiths, they loved them. They hated the qiyas and the using of the mind, and they didn't. No, there are political motives as well. And one of the most appalling things that you read in Islamic history is the different madhab wars. The Shafi'is, the Hanafis, the Malikis, how they fought each other. And how they waged war and they fabricated hadiths. Siraj ummati an-Nu'man. The light of my ummah, as Abu Hanifa the hadith says. That's a powerful statement. The light of my ummah is what? Abu Hanifa, khalas. It's a wrap. Or there would come a man from my ummah whose name is Muhammad ibn Idris. When he comes, beware of him, for he is a demon. That's a strong hadith against Shafi'i. Everyone understand this? Or they use a hadith of Medina, that that iman will run back to Medina like a snake runs back to its burrow. So therefore, Malik's madhab is the correct madhab, because I'm in Medina. And that's an authentic hadith which is being misinterpreted. So they fabricated hadiths, they misinterpreted hadiths, they have political wars. There are rulings that they have about praying behind someone that's not on your madhab. Hukm al-iqtida bil-mukhalif. Is it permissible to pray behind a Hanafi? Is it permissible to pray behind someone who's not a Hanafi? They made these, this is deep history. Read the life of Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah. And while some people say he used to be Hanbali, and then he turned Shafi'i. Why was he a Shafi'i? Or why did he write books and attack the Hanbalis? Read what they did to him in Baghdad. There's certain narrations that they locked him in his house. They prevented him from making wudu. They kept water from him because he was against them. So this is a reality between these two groups, let alone the Ahlul Ra'i themselves, Hanafi, Shafi'i, Zahiri, etc. Read these stories. Why do people hate Ibn Hazm so much? They didn't just hate Ibn Hazm because he was revolutionary. No, they hated him because he exposed them. He exposed their hypocrisy. He exposed their double standards. Here, statement of Sahabi, you take. And here, 10 Sahaba did it, and you say you can't do it. He exposed them. So that's why they hated him so much, and they barred him from being orthodox. The Zahiri school isn't orthodox because he exposed their double standards. So there are political influence influences, their reasons, all types of reasons why they had these different wars between the different groups, the camps, let alone within one what? Camp. Schisms within schisms. So we don't have time to discuss this in detail. If we had more time, I wouldn't mind explaining more. I believe what I've mentioned is more than enough to get you, inshallah, get the taste buds tingling, inshallah, for more food. And Allah knows best. We ran out of time, Saudi? Inshallah, we must stop here. Allah Azza wa Jalla surely knows best. I'm so sorry. I apologize to everyone that you didn't get your question. Guys, we have to realize that there are tons of questions all the time. We try our best, which is obviously not good enough. And inshallah, we'll try harder to have less time or more Q&As to get to the people's questions. Inshallah, after the salah, brother. I'm so sorry. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.